Hello YouTube, wanted to bring you another video. Went out and did some street photography with the X100V and the wide conversion lens, and thought, it made sense to kind of give you guys my setup, show you how I use this camera along with the conversion lens and the benefits that you can get with using one of the Fuji conversion lens when you're out shooting. So what you see again is my X100V. I got the silver version. So again, I'm not hiding the fact when I go out with this thing that I'm taking photos. Usually people see this camera and the first thing they think of is that I got an old style film camera, which is kind of cool. And I get questions asked, and it'll even help in me being able to get some street portraits, believe it or not, because it's a nice icebreaker when it comes to getting street portraits. So went out to do some street photography with the intent of getting unobtrusive shots, documenting what's going on in front of me, as well as some street portraitures if the opportunity arises. And then also looking for those smart photos, those decisive moment photos. So as you can see, with the native lens on, we're looking at a 23mm lens on this. That's the focal length. You see I have on a Nissan filter, a nice glass filter actually, and I kind of like it because it helps to keep that weather seal going with this filter on. I know I could have used a regular filter and kind of gotten the same, but I like this one because it also allows me to still use the cover. So, but you guys, of course, want to know about that conversion lens and what my experience is like. So what I'll do is first I'll turn this on. And you can see on the screen that it, of course, is showing you all my settings and everything and how I start to shoot, And I actually will use my auto exposures based on the scene. So I'm going to go ahead and put that conversion lens on so that you guys can see what its presence is like when attached to the camera. And as you can see, as I screw this thing on, it has a presence to it. Definitely has a presence to it. It is silver. It is going to show again. People are going to see it, and they again still think that it's an old style film camera. No one seems to be what's the word, apprehensive about me approaching them to do a street photo portrait. So what I do when I shoot this, though, is I don't necessarily just shoot it at the wide. Now, as you see, when I turn this on, that it'll have the symbol at the top showing that the wide conversion lens is on. I set up my control ring right here so that I can use the digital zoom and get different focal lengths. So you just saw it change there. So the first thing that I get is a 41mm focal length, which is great. It puts you kind of in that natural focal length that your eyes see in. And then if I want to punch in closer to maybe get a good portrait shot, hitting it to its widest, turning that ring a little bit again, brings me to a 58mm focal length. So that to me is a sweet spot for what I like to do when I go out and shoot. I definitely want something sometimes a little wider than the 23mm native lens, and this gives me that option. The other positive to this is that I can take this conversion lens off and still use that digital zoom, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we'll take this off, and as I go back to the native lens and I use that digital zoom, you see that's set to 70 right now using that digital zoom. If I go back one step, I'm at 50, and if I go back all the way, I'm at the normal focal length for this camera, which is 23mm. So you literally get a wide range of focal lengths when using the digital zoom coupled with one of the conversion lenses. For those of you who have the wide, I do have the wide, but I should say the telephoto conversion lens. I do have that as well, but I find that I like what I get for street photography using the wide. The ranges that you get in the focal length will initially start at 50, and go to that 70. So that you saw that without the conversion lens on here, you saw that it was at 70 and 50 for its middle focal length and its longest focal length. With that telephoto conversion lens on there, it will go to a 50 as your start, 70 as your middle, and then it'll go as far out as 100 millimeters for its longest focal length. So if you actually wanted to really go out and give yourselves a lot of options using one camera and using conversion lenses, this is definitely it. The other added benefit to doing this, though, is that with an update to the firmware Fuji did a couple of months back, I want to say maybe even the beginning of this year, gave us the opportunity to capture the JPEG that's burned in at that digital zoom, because that digital zoom is only burning in that focal length on the JPEG. You're not getting that on the RAW. Before, if you use this, you would only get the JPEG, you wouldn't get the RAW. Well, now you get the JPEG and the RAW. And to take advantage of that, as you can see, I shoot in JPEG and RAW. Because when I go ahead and take the memory card out and pull this up in Capture One, which is what I use for my editing for my files, Capture One will pull forward the JPEG and the RAW. So I've found that in some instances I maybe didn't like the JPEG based on whatever film simulation I'm using, and I now have the RAW. Now, granted, that RAW is going to be at the 19 millimeter wide that this is when you put the conversion lens on, and it'll be the same when the conversion lens is off at 23, and it'll be the same with the telephoto conversion lens on at 50. So the raw shot will be whatever the native lens focal length is with or without the conversion lens on them. But your JPEG will be whatever you shot this in, whether it be in its widest, which is the conversion lens setting, or without, or its longest, which would be the digital zoom focal length, depending on, again, whether you have on a conversion lens or whether you're shooting without it. So I really like that. It gives me a lot of options. Sometimes you may get a shot and realize, dang it, I'm a little too close, and then you have that wide RAW, or that native lens RAW, I should say, shot waiting for you. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys some photos and kind of go over what you see there. I will say, there, out of all of the benefits you get with this, there is one huge negative that I've discovered, and this is with, I don't know if it's Capture One thing. I really don't use Lightroom as much, but it will not show the focal length of the digital zoom. So right now, when I go through these photos and show you guys exactly what's going on, you'll see the JPEGs first and then the RAW for that same photo. You'll see what that looks like with very, very, very light edits. But what you won't see, and that I see when I'm working on these in post, is that it will show 19 millimeters for every photo. So that's the bummer. I won't know if a photo is at 41 millimeters or if it's at 58, unless, of course, I know that I'm taking a portrait. You do kind of get a feel for the focal length you're shooting at when you're using this. It's become second nature to me, of course, based on how I set this up. I've been shooting like this for a while now, actually almost 2 years. I've been using that digital zoom or option as much as I could. I want to say the digital zoom was on the X100F. So I did use that. Of course, you were only getting that JPEG back then. So again, a lot of benefits to it. We're going to go ahead and show you guys some photos. If you like what you see, as always, please subscribe. Definitely like the video. Definitely like, I should say, put in the comments what your thoughts are, how you feel about the conversion lens. Is it something that you think you can add to your arsenal when using the 100, the X100V or the X100F? I would have to look and see if that update is in there for the F, but definitely in there for the V. I like it a lot. I think it's a very nice upgrade that they did with the firmware in that one. And the only thing I need to figure out now is the hiccup with the focal length in post. So take a look at the photos. Tell me what you think in the comments. See you later, YouTube.